As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
You're listening to another Big Buck Breakdown,
powered by the Element Podcast and YouTube channel.
What's up, y'all? We are fresh off of a trip to South Dakota that was not refreshing. There was not a lot of refreshness. However, we got on them bucks, and today we're going to talk to old T. Jones about his big buck from South Dakota. So, Tyler, the cat's out of the bag. You shot a big buck in South Dakota.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, man.
Yeah. So,
10 point.
Dadgummit, what day did you shoot this deer on of the hunt, like official season day?
I think it was like 5.
Day 5,
or
I think
4?
The morning of day 4, I believe it was. Yeah, I've been running.
Yeah, because it's October 4th.
Yeah, I've been going through all the stories and kind of making a highlight recently, so I kind of got a pretty good idea of the timeline.
You probably have a better idea than I do.
I got a real good idea right now. I can help you with some stuff. And real quick, guys, this is a Big Buck Breakdown, and we wanted to tell you actually about a Big Buck video that's out right now. Tyler not only slayed a giant in South Dakota, but last year on December 28th, he smoked a legit Kansas public land buck as well. So if you haven't, go over to the YouTube channel, watch that video, and tell us what you think about that, because it is pretty sweet. Tyler, you have some big shoes to fill, not only because you wear a size 14, but because last year you shot 5 bucks. This year you're well on your way to doing possibly better than that, because you're actually, day for day doing better than you did last year, which is wild. However, we're going to talk about Buck 2 of the 2021 season. Tyler, tell me about the setup on October 4th to go in and kill this big buck.
Okay, so, Eric and I hunted several days together, starting out in a spot that was a really cool spot. It's actually, this is a weird deal that I don't know, I kind of have these weird deals like this, but I want to go back and kill a deer in that spot. You know what I mean? I have this, it just sets up awesome, and it's in this kind of mountainous terrain almost, where it's like, I feel like what I figured out there is pretty cool, and I want to kill a deer on that pattern that I figured out. So, I'm really excited. I'll be thinking about that for the next year at least, and maybe several years if we don't actually go back there to hunt that same spot. But we did that a few days. We got a kind of a wind change one day that started to happen for us because we had so much rain and stuff early on. Wind finally started to change, I guess the night of the 3rd or something, and we had secretly scouted out some small ag food plot type stuff that had been couldn't really see from the road very well, but we had, we have the eagle eye right here next to me that sees everything. And he was like, "Oh, I think I see a top of a corn stalk from 600 yards away." And we were like, "Put the binos up." Yes, we do, So anyway, we knew that there was some ag there. And I thought, man, there's got to be, we also knew there were bucks in the area. And so I was like, I know there's got to be, those deer are not just living on, forbs and stuff and other food sources, because this is a big, expanse of habitat, bedding habitat especially. I was like, they got to be using that too. And in the morning, this works out to where I can have a wind, which I thought the wind was going to be more of a 90-degree wind to the direction the deer were coming from. Ended up being probably closer to 70 or something degrees off of them. So what I would probably consider a just off wind. A lot of people like to talk about this just off wind. Really, it can't be super close. If it's not close to 90 degrees, you're probably still going to get smelled. Especially on a not so windy day where it's blowing less than 10, but more than 4 or 5 or whatever. And so, anyway, I'm setting up in this spot that I'm expecting deer to come into bedding that morning, and it looks like just a big kind of expanse of willows more than anything. It's just this flat area, which is a lot different than what we've been hunting. We've been going, nearly 3/4 of a mile in, just 300-foot elevation down, whatever, and really working hard in and out. And this is just a flat place. It's not far from the road, really, and it's just thick. And we get in there, and like the navigation's pretty tough. I was able to use my OnX to help me out. If you like I said, navigate button on the app, that's like that you can press twice. If you press it once, it takes you to your spot and centers you up where you're actually at. If you press it twice, it shows this like navigation which way your phone is facing. You know what I mean? So I was using that to help me get to what I had picked out, which was one little kind of clear spot that I could see on the map, and right, like there's a transition line where it transitions from like some sort of fauna that I think is willows of sorts to another one that's like, I think is willows as well, possibly, but there may be different sizes, like got burned or cut or whatever at different years. But you can see that line. It leads right to this kind of opening. There's a small opening, and looks like there's some bigger trees in there. So when we get there, it looks great. Like, it's dark. It's super dark. We got up early, made sure to get in there, give ourselves time. Plus, it was not too far off the road. So I gave myself plenty of time. Get in there. There's big willows is what most of these trees are. And then for whatever reason, I don't know if it's, floods a lot or what, but this little area doesn't have little willows in it as thick. And so it's got a lot of different forbs, goldenrod, and, some willows and some other things that, they'll browse on. And we're sitting there kind of waiting on it to get light. And it, I guess I can't remember if I heard them first or I looked up and saw them. I think I looked up and saw them, but I might have heard them first. But I saw two does coming in. They couldn't see them till they were 40 yards probably, Well, actually, I saw the does about 60 or 70, I think. That was the first I could see them, just barely got a glimpse of them. So I told Eric, he starts filming them. And they come into like 20, 25 yards, one of them. And they worked right down the edge of these willows, right where I had seen on the aerial that, and assumed that they would work down that edge coming back to bedding that morning. And we filmed them for about 10 minutes, and I start hearing something kind of out in front of me, just off a little bit closer to my wind, actually, but still kind of using the same transition line, coming from the same direction. And I'm like, you can see me. I watched it on the GoPro yesterday. You can see me, like, I keep looking over there for like a minute, and I would look over there, then I kind of like look back at these does and make sure, that everything was good there. And I hear it again. I look back over there, and finally, about the third time I looked, I'm sitting there looking hard. I'm like, you can tell I know something. I heard something for sure, at this point. And I'm looking hard, and all of a sudden, you can just see me go, there's a buck. Shoot a buck right there. And so, like, all of a sudden, the heart gets to racing, And Eric, I'm kind of like guiding him through it. He hadn't seen the deer yet, so I'm letting him know, you can move or don't move. Here's one thing that I don't like is when I'm sitting in a tree stand with guys, and I've done this a lot over the years, so I'm not singling anybody out. But when I'm sitting in a tree with a guy, and he goes, don't move, there's a deer. And then 5 minutes later, I still haven't moved. And he's like, the doe or whatever is gone. And it's like, dude, you got to let me know when I can move. You know, like I got to be able to see this deer. The idea is that when I can finally move enough to see the deer, then you don't have to tell me whether I can move or not, So anyway, me and Eric worked that system real well. I told him when he could move, get the camera over. Okay, hold on, stop, that kind of thing. And the buck kind of works his way in. It happens pretty quick. And, when I saw him, he was 35 yards maybe. And so he works his way in, and basically these deer are feeding heavily in there. I mean, they're getting ready to bed, but they're just packing on. I mean, you can attest to the fat layer that was on both the bucks that, were killed or whatever. And anyway, so they're coming in.
Wait, more bucks got killed on the strip?
There were. If you follow us on Instagram, you know that. But if you don't, then you don't. Maybe.
You should.
Yeah, you should. So anyway, they're feeding heavily in there, just eating all that stuff, man. It's crazy, the natural food sources that they were eating in there and how much of it there was available to them. But basically, this deer comes in, and he gets to, there's a range or a tree I ranged at 18, and so he comes on the back side of that, and I guessed him at I think I guesstimate like I think I pretty much shot him for 20, and I tried to mac him or grunt him or whatever you want to call, and I did it pretty loud. Didn't feel like it would spook him. It wasn't like super quiet. There was decent wind, and so I mac him pretty loud, and he doesn't stop. And so at that point, I'm like, well, I can mac really loud, or I can just shoot him walking real slow at 20 yards. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I put it, and I have a little bit of experience with shooting deer walking. I don't love to do it, but I have done it a time or two, and I've seen it done in camp and stuff too, so I know how much a deer can move when it's walking, you know.
It's more than the average guy would think.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying I can tell you the exact amount. I just have a good idea. And like, I mean, you could put it a foot ahead of where you want to shoot if a deer is walking, and you're not going to be shooting too far forward. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot. So anyway, I basically had a tree coming up where I wouldn't be able to shoot him, and so I just shot him on the walk. I just moved it over right to his shoulder and squeezed off and shot him, you know, on the walk. Probably hit him like, seriously, like 10 or 12 inches back from where I aimed. Mm-hmm. And so it ended up being double long, shot a big old 3-blade, and he runs out there. Eric got footage of it, you know, got the deer in there good and everything. You can tell what he is pretty good. Ends up, the deer runs off. Basically, this deer literally runs like 20 yards. I'm like, he's going to go down right there. And he just crashes at literally 45 yards from us, dude. It was awesome. It was so cool. And so, and I also forgot to mention that as that deer gets to like 25 or so, another 8-point came out behind him. And I told Eric, I was like, there's another deer behind him, but I'm going to shoot this first one because he's a 10-point. He's a good one, you know. So anyway, got to watch him. He piled up at 45 yards or whatever. And then I look over at Eric, and we give like fives and stuff. And then I look back where he was, and he's standing up again, like a few yards away from where he was.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what in the world? So I start like getting ready to knock it again, and then he crashes again, and that was it. And so what was crazy is, you know, I shot him at 20 yards, but it's so thick in there, we were not able to actually find the arrow. It was a pass through.
Yeah, dude.
We looked for like 10 or 15 minutes.
That was 4 of us looking for the arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it was just, I really wanted to find the arrow just to kind of see what it all looked like. It helps with tracking in the future and stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I was unable to do that. But man, it was just like one of those mornings where I kind of almost didn't expect much because it's a place I'd never been to, and I'm just making a big assumption in a very, like, this isn't just a rut funnel. Like, sometimes in a rut funnel you feel like, you know, you feel like I'm sitting in a spot and this could happen because it's November 8th and deer are, you know, going to be moving through this. They can't go that way. They can't go that way. They got to come this way. This is just a big expanse of similar, kind of almost monotonous habitat, but I was able to, you know, dig in on that map pretty good the night before and find a good spot. And then once I got in there, I adjusted my tree by about 20 yards probably, and just found a tree that I could shoot out of and stuff without having to, you know, cut down the forest and everything else that you can't do on public land, and we made it work, man. Two guys in the willow tree, and it was cool, dude. We got to celebrate. The whole crew got to come out and take pictures, and we got awesome footage, you know, because it was daytime.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to normal evening stuff that I do.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. It's fun to be there for that. I wasn't feeling very good, but it made me feel better when you killed a big deer. And it was pretty awesome, dude, just to have everybody there. It's an awesome buck, man. You know, just tell everybody a little bit about, you know, what he looks like, what he is, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, he's basically just a mainframe 10. No junk. He's not like a big 10, but he's a good, 10. We thought he might be 3 years old. You know, you just never know.
I'd actually seen that deer the day before.
Yeah.
A little bit. I kind of stood up pretty far from there, but they apparently are walking around quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I was juiced up the day before when I saw him.
Dude, we had this like running joke where we talked about how if you shot, like when we first started seeing deer up there, like, man, if you shoot one of these with an arrow, it's going to just like absorb the arrow. They're so fat, you know. We called them pillow deer.
Yeah.
And literally the first thing I thought when I walked up on this deer was pillow deer. It was the first thing I thought, dude.
Their abdomens sit like 3 feet off. It's like a cow if it lays over, you know. Like they have a big old fat belly.
He was huge, dude. Like, I don't know. I just don't know how he wouldn't be 3 years old at least, because
Yeah.
he was just so fat, man. And you could tell he just gorged all night, man. And just like they're getting ready for a hard winter in South Dakota. It's a lot harder than Texas, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, for sure, man. Well, congratulations on that deer. I'm so happy to be a part of it and just to be able to share camp with you and all the rest of the guys in South Dakota, man. It was a blast. Another big buck hits the ground, and I can't help but imagine there are more coming. Maybe soon. Maybe soon. So y'all be sure if you haven't and subscribe so that you can hear more about this. And go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe there as well so you can see the video format of all this stuff. Because, man, the hunt from this deer is going to be awesome. That was an awesome story about a big buck. Guys, if you haven't, you need to check out the Element YouTube channel because we are constantly uploading new videos of big bucks from the 2021 season.
Don't forget to subscribe, and also you can check out our website for any merch or swag that you want. It helps us out tremendously. We appreciate it. Remember that. And remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.